Hello, everybody. It's great to see such a fantastic crowd again today. I really appreciate this kind of attendance we've been getting. I have told a couple of people that I've rehearsed my remarks today at least 20 times, working on the timing and the other aspect, working on getting through them without having to stop and collect myself. So I've never succeeded in the latter. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. At some point today, I will exchange texts with a former colleague of mine that I worked with when I was at the Gannett corporate headquarters in the Metro DC area. We were not close friends when we worked together, but today she will reach out to me as she does every year on this day, and we will talk about her son, Oliver, who will celebrate his 22nd birthday next month. On September 11th, 2001, we were at work on the 30th tower of the Gannett Tower that overlooked the Potomac on one side and the Pentagon on the other. We were all huddled around TVs in a conference room, watching what was unfolding in New York City. Suddenly, we heard the department secretary, who was right alongside of us, scream, an unearthly scream I've never heard anything like before. And we looked up and out that window just in time to see American Airlines Flight 77 slam into the Pentagon. Our 31-story building shook to its foundation, and mass hysteria took over. Okay. Seems like on every floor, we had the top, Gannett had the top 10 floors of this building, but there were other organizations in the floors underneath. But it seems that every floor, everybody was watching what was going on, and they didn't need to take any time to figure out what might have happened or whether or not we should be concerned. We knew that we were the tallest building on the Washington cityscape, even though we were based in Roslyn, Virginia, and the largest media company in the country at that point. Gannett does not have that lofty title today. Our dual towers also housed USA Today. We feared we might be a target too. Not that we actually took any time to discuss the matter. And we ran. Several thousand people pushed and shoved their way down the stairs. Val was 8 months pregnant. And as you can imagine, she was neither fast nor steady on her feet. So I got alongside of her and I braced myself against her to keep her close to the wall and away from the crowds running down the stairs. Together, we made our way down 30 flights of stairs to of all things, the basement. All the garages in this area, they're all underground. I thought this, as we're getting down there, I'm thinking this is really stupid, because if somebody is slamming a plane into this building, it's going to collapse right on top of us. But then I thought, well, it'll be over fast. So even though, oh, sorry, anybody who's lived in the Washington metro area knows what a nightmare rush hour can be. I have no idea how many hours it took for us to get that, down the stairs, and then the time it took me to get 12 miles to home. It was a long trip, and I thought a lot on that trip. And when I got home, I was humiliated and embarrassed. After a lifetime as a journalist, the biggest story of my life was unfolding, and I had run the other way. Even though I was now in technology and no longer on the news side of the business, I knew there were things I could have done to help. I could take notes, I could make calls, I could answer calls. For that matter, I could run get coffee. So I got in my car and I tried to go back to the USA Today building, but the roads were, of course, all closed. For years, I felt like a coward. But over the years of September 11th that Val and I have shared, I've come to think, this is the part I get choked up at. I come to think that maybe that was the something I could do. I could help get Val safely down the stairs. I think excuse me, every one of us has some kind of special connection to this day, regardless of where we were, what we were doing, or how near or far away we might have been. In the aftermath, we wrestled with our better angels. We came together more unified as Americans than I can ever remember. But we also brought hate and violence, directing it at Muslim communities and mosques. Our leaders, one of whom today faces a RICO trial, stood strong against that mass hatred and hysteria. Today, 22 years later, we are more divided than I could ever have imagined. Intolerance is our default position. Anger, hate, and violence are our daily diet, and we partake of it with gusto. Many of our politicians fuel this division, reveling in the inadequacy of norms and chipping away at the functions of government. Courts are under attack, and some justices, including those at the highest level, seem more concerned with finding bizarre justifications to bad decisions than upholding their lofty and crucial role as the backstop of our societal structure. In my view, there is just one thing standing in the way of a total breakdown of our society, and that's a free press. Attacks on press freedom are not uncommon in many parts of the world, but they have been somewhat fewer and far between in this country. That is, until the MAGA era. Last month, based on a complaint from one resident, police in a small Kansas town barged into the town's newspaper office, confiscated their computers, their personal phones, and documents. It took a couple of days, and the death of the newspaper's co-owner from a heart attack brought on by stress, that the court ordered that the equipment and the documents be returned. So great. First Amendment prevailed, but did it? Will it? This was hardly an isolated instance. You probably remember when CNN reporter Jim Acosta had his White House press credentials pulled because then President Donald didn't like his question. A lesser publicized case occurred in Iowa in 2020 when a Des Moines Register reporter was pepper sprayed by police and arrested during a George Floyd protest. Although she had identified herself as a reporter, she was held, charged, and indicted and stood trial for failure to disperse and interference with official acts. She was acquitted in 2021. It's all about access, everybody knows that, and far-right candidates know it. During the 2022 campaign, Doug Mastriano was running for governor of Pennsylvania. He barred the press from his events, refused to be interviewed or answer any questions. And he printed out photos of journalists to give to staffers at events to make sure that they never let them in to the events. He lost badly to Josh Shapiro. And there are other threats. Lack of trust on the part of the community. The advent of alternative facts has made journalist jobs so much more difficult. The growth of alternative media, crowdsourced platforms like Reddit and podcasts means that just about anybody with an opinion can build a following of readers, regardless how diligently they gather their facts or what biases they represent. In 2022, Pew Research reported that 53% of US adults get their news on social media platforms. I don't know if that scares you as much as it scares me, but 31% saying they get it from Facebook, 33% say they prefer news via TV, and a paltry 5% chose print media. And what constitutes a vetted news source anyway? Who knows? And that's the problem. Even when print was king, you would hear, you can't believe everything you read. But now we're starting to question what we see with our own eyes. The growing footprint of and reliance on artificial intelligence is a tremendous advantage for businesses seeking greater visibility into their operations and their customers. But like all great technology advances, there's downside. Fake videos are getting harder and harder to deconstruct, and the real possibility exists that the technology will outpace our control mechanisms just in time for the 2024 election. What happens to the idea of a free press when everyone is passing themselves off as valid information source? When you can't believe what you read or see? When most people won't take the trouble to vet what they heard or saw, and those who do may be thwarted by the vast array of conflicting information with no true and trusted source to sift through it? One of the things I love is when you go to the library board meetings, everybody in the room has a freedom to read sign. And it means something completely different to this person than it does to this person. You would never know it. I want to make the decision about what my child reads. Well, yeah, right. What happens if we have a second constitutional Congress crisis and it decides to amend the First Amendment? Or the Supreme Court gets a case it can use to overrule Sullivan versus New York Times, which in 1964 was a landmark case that protected the American press from being sued by public officials. Our featured speakers today are on the front lines of these changes. We'll hear from Andy Brack and Amy Wood, who will talk about what it's like to cover politics, governance, and the community in the divided and technology-driven world we're living in. Following their presentations, we're going to have a Q&A. So get your pads and paper and start jotting down some of the questions you've got, because I know you've got a lot. We're going to start today with Andy. Andy is the editor and publisher of the Charleston City Paper and the weekly newsletter State House Report, which I'm imagining a good number of folks in this room are readers of. He's seen politics close up as press secretary for Senator Fritz Hollings and a one-time congressional candidate himself. He was recognized as the state's best columnist in 2023 by the State Press Association and earned first place for political columns in a national contest held by the Association of Alternative News Media. We are excited to have Andy with us in person, which I've learned is not because of this terrific opportunity and this great audience, but rather because tomorrow is his daughter's birthday. So we are a vehicle to a family birthday celebration, and I'm glad we could be that. That's great for all of us. Welcome, Andy, and thank you for joining us today.
They're giving me awards now because I'm getting old. Thank you all for having me, and I'm happy to bring some of Charleston to you. So out there, if you haven't snarfed them all up, are some things. First of all is the latest copy of the City Paper. It has an interesting story about how we are now importing EMTs from Australia in Charleston, and hopefully y'all will get some too. There's a new program out. It's kind of cool. There is a magazine that we produce called Journeys, which celebrates the International African American Museum. I am really proud about this one because we have 10 to 15 stories in this and on our website about this museum because I think it's a big deal. That's page 4. Post and Courier, my erstwhile competition, had 2. I think this is the kind of thing that exemplifies why independent weekly media like us are able to still thrive. And it's because, it's important to us to be able to represent diverse communities. When Ed Bell, who's a lawyer, and I bought the paper about 4 years ago, in the very first meeting with the staff, I looked around and I said, all 20 of you guys are white, but our community is not all white. We are going to cover black, brown, green, purple, and blue, and red, I suppose. And anyway, but point of it is that we have a responsibility to do that. And I think we'll talk about responsibility in a minute. And finally, this is a quarterly, y'all like, sometimes y'all visit Charleston and we have lots of good restaurants, as you do, but I'm telling you where to go. So enjoy that and enjoy the dish. But thanks again for allowing me to come. I am very happily known as a Democratic woman in Charleston. I haven't paid my dues in 20 years, but I think you really only have to pay once. A few years ago, when I was in business and not in supposedly objective journalism, I was the chair of the Democratic Party, and then I got the fool idea, Lee, to run for Congress. But it was an enormous amount of fun, and I learned a lot, and I learned to raise money, which is the kind of a hard thing to learn. So what I thought I'd do is try to limit comments to a few things that we were talking about beforehand. And then I think questions are always a lot more fun. I used to teach at the College of Charleston, and I found that if I just laid things out a little bit and then let them ask questions, it ended up being a lot more interesting. So remember, I'm a professional opinion haver. Okay? And so when I'm posed with the notion of discuss accuracy and fairness in the post-truth world, I take issue with that. I don't believe we're in a post-truth world. Truth still counts, people, and it's my job and Amy's job to tell you the truth. If you don't believe us, that's your own damn fault. So what we try to do is, to the best of our abilities, we try to provide what we view as truth, and there can be multiple truths. If you're a reporter and you don't ask a question, how can you include that in the story? Doesn't mean that the story is not true. It's just you haven't included that information. Let me give you an example of something you don't want to include in a story. So a reporter on the City Paper website now, by the way, all of our stuff is free, just like all the stuff on TV is free. Most of the newspaper stuff now has got paywalls on it. Go to an incognito window, download the page, and then use the links at top, and you can get to any damn page you want to. All right. But I will tell you, because TV and free press like us don't have paywalls, I think you're seeing better quality journalism. 10 years ago, TV to a print reporter was not as serious, but I'm seeing a lot more detailed, good bits of news. We do a thing every single week called the Gun Violence Tracker, because I want to know how many people got shot in the state, and nobody is doing that. But I'm able to keep up with that because I go to WSPA, I go to WIS, I go to WCSC in Charleston, I go to BTW, and I look, because they're covering those stories. The Post and Courier is not. Myrtle Beach story might get 1-0, but paper might get 1-0. So anyway, so this reporter wrote a story called Berkeley County Parent Challenges 93 Books in School Library. All right. And the ACLU did a Freedom of Information Act, and they provided all the information to us and all. Reporter writes the story and mentions the lady's name. And I told him, I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, because it's on the report there. I'm like, well, you didn't put that Freedom of Information report out, and it doesn't have her address. It doesn't have a phone number. It doesn't have an email. How do you know somebody didn't lie? The reason I'm bringing that story up, we ran the story, but we didn't identify the person. We just said Berkeley County parent. And I think it's an important story because here's somebody trying to use this Moms for Liberty crap to ban books again. And so we need people to know about that. But I think that it's also important for somebody like me who's got a little seniority to vet this reporter, because he didn't think that it was wrong to put her name in there. That's the problem I'm facing now, is that the reporters believe what they see on the internet, and they don't have a problem with relating it. You got to have somebody like me, an editor who's a little older, to say, no, you can't do that. Let me give you another example of that. So, oh, sorry. Anyway, so it's the extra height I've got on my boots. Another reporter last week summarized a story, and you tell me if this clicks off anything in your brain. Said gun violence costs $2,713 per person in South Carolina, and as a total, the state spends $13.9 million. Sorry. All right, 13.9 million, $2,713. How many people are there in South Carolina? 5 million. Do you think maybe he should put billion instead of million? I mean, it's these kind of things that these young reporters are making, and I made mistakes like this in the past, but you got to have senior people to read these things. So I don't think, again, that we're having a problem with truth. We are having a problem with youth. Maybe I'll just leave it there. That's not bad. I think that we are having general problems with accuracy. And I think that with reporters or with editors being out there, that will take care of it. I think we're having some issues with critical thinking. And that the example there is just, it should have been as plain as the nose on the face that it was billion, not million. But I do think that our job still is the same. Find out the truth. I'm giving a presentation tomorrow in Charleston, and one of the slides is question authority. That's what we are supposed to do. And, there's a story going on in Charleston right now. I've got a reporter at a noon press conference. 4 of 9 school board members are challenging why the 5 of 9 are having a special meeting to talk about the superintendent's contract with no notice. That's a violation of law. Go to the press conference, ask questions. Ask them, are they violating the law? Another thing that Laura was talking about is social media. Social media has impacted how we cover things. I am a little worried about people who get a lot of their information from social media, because guess what? The Chinese and the Russians know that that's what's happening. And so they're trying to influence that. If you get Facebook friend requests from people who are not from South Carolina and have no friends at all, my suggestion is don't say okay to that. But I think that social media, like artificial intelligence, are tools that we can use to make our reporting better. And I'll give you 2 examples. We have in this magazine new restaurants every quarter. Well, you'll see up on Facebook on the City Papers feed every now and then, what are your latest new restaurants? What's your favorites and why? And then I'm able to take that information. I get the social media person at the paper to bring it all together, and then they'll come up with restaurants that I haven't heard of. And so we'll look into those. And so it's kind of a crowdsourcing of information. And I think that's a helpful trend. Another thing that I think social media helps with is if we have a question about something going on in the community, we can use it to get people's input before we report on the story. So, for example, have y'all ever ridden on Charleston's bumpy roads? I mean, that they suck. I mean, that's just what they do. So we wrote a story, why do our roads suck? And what we did was I found a tool from MIT that was crowdsourced, and a tool that checked the bumpiness of your roads just with the phone. It's an app that fits on your phone, and however your phone moves in your car like that, it checks the bumpiness. And it's been used like 1 million times, and it's been found accuracy in peer-reviewed papers. If you get the truck to do that, $700,000 for the truck. This is free. So I asked people on Facebook, what's the worst road in Charleston? Oh my God, we got 500 responses within something like 4 hours. And so we went and drove those roads on using this app and then reported on them. And just so you're not dismayed, every single road we checked in the peninsula sucked. Okay. That was outside of the scope, way too high. And, we let the public officials know. And so we say, go get the app. Anyway, it's free. Last but not least is if you look at artificial intelligence, it can be an issue, but I think it's not as much of an issue for news. And here's why. What Amy and I rely on is new original reporting. How can you ask a computer to go tell you about a thing that doesn't exist or just started? If they do, it's going to be so filled with obvious errors. Like, tell me about the shooting that happened an hour ago on 526. There's not anything. And so, I think that original reporting continues to be needed. Artificial intelligence can't help with that. I ask, and I'm sorry I can't put it up on the screen, but I asked my art director to come up with an artificial intelligence picture of me speaking in Greenville before I showed up. And I can't show it to you, but I'll tell you that it had me like this, but it wasn't even my face. And then it had some gibberish in the back about Greenville. It was like, and then there was another picture that I don't know what the person was, but it didn't look anything like me, had blonde hair. I mean, it was crazy. It's not smart enough yet to do that. But it is smart enough to do some really helpful things. My sister is battling breast cancer in Charleston, and it's a specific kind. And so we're working to do a database-driven tool so that anytime any study about that particular kind of cancer comes up from anywhere in the world, artificial intelligence will notify us and we can tell the doctors. That's cool. Anybody use Spotify? How do they know your musical taste? The artificial intelligence is helping them. Anybody use maps in your car? How do they know kind of the best route to go based on your speed? Well, artificial intelligence is helping that. So there are good things that are doing these things. I think the last thing to share with y'all is I am more hopeful about the news environment than most people, because I think that the people that are remaining in the news business have a dedication to truth and justice and fairness and reporting and democracy and all those good things. It comes from this is where I get like wonky, sorry, but it comes from the 1947 theory of social responsibility by Robert Hutchins. This is what I did my master's degree in. So I always end up with this, okay? But it's really easy because it basically says in a free society, people need good information to be able to make choices. That's it. And so what our job is to give good information so you can make choices. I think that it's hopeful in South Carolina because we've got pretty good media here. The negative side right now is that the Republicans are getting away with murder in Columbia because there's not enough reporters. When I started as a reporter in 1990 in Columbia, there were about 30 people in the State House Press Corps. Now there's about 10, 12. And so what I'm planning to do, and y'all are the first group I've told this, is I'm in the middle of starting a $200,000 a year campaign for a nonprofit that our newspaper started to hire 2 reporters to be a Columbia bureau. And I want to do 2 things with that. Number one, I want to curate news about what's going on in Columbia. And then we will publish that in Charleston first. But then I'm going to give it to all the weekly newspapers for free because they are having a really hard time. And so, just so, for example, let's say, the prison system has X, Commerce Department announces unemployment down. Those weekly papers will be able to take our long story and put in one paragraph that says, here's how it impacts McCormick County, or here's how it impacts Greenwood. Now, the TVs are going to pay for it if they want it, and the daily newspapers are going to pay for it. But I'm giving it to the weeklies for free because they are having such a struggle getting decent reporters there. So again, I am more hopeful at age 62 about the news environment than I have been in a long time. Yes, we face challenges, but good God, there's always been challenges, you know? So anyway, support your local paper. If you want to support mine, you can give it a contribution. But support your local paper and read it. I mean, don't advertise necessarily on some social media site and give Facebook the money. Go advertise with the Greenville News or the Greenville Journal or WSPA or something like that, because they can reach your audience in a smarter, better way. So thank y'all very much. And I'll look for questions after our next speaker's time.
I send out a post-event email after every meeting, so send me that. I'd love to get it out there. I want to see it. Okay, thank you very much, Andy. That was great. And I'm with you. We should have a truth society. We should be based in truth, and more power to you for doing everything you can to make that happen. Our next speaker may seem like an old friend, as you've had her in your living rooms for more than 3 decades. She's been an anchor at WSPA and currently helms 4 news shows daily. I don't know how you do that, from 4 to 8. Did I get that right?
It's actually noon to 6:30 now.
Oh, there's been a change. Okay, noon to 6:30. She's got dinner free. She's been honored by the South Carolina Broadcasters Association, the Radio and Television Digital News Association, as well as national journalism think tanks like the Poynter Institute, Paley Center for Media, and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. Amy is known for her brand of interactive news, and we welcome you today. Thank you.
So, I'm going to be honest. I missed the email that said presentation. I got the email or text that said panel. So we're going to go light on presentation and heavy on panel as a result. But it was really fun to hear Andy talk about the innovative things he's doing, like finding the way to get the result you want. You want Columbia reporters, you find a way to finance it. The bigger broadcasters, I think, in my world, parental, oversight from afar, we don't get to do the things that a more versatile, agile operation like you have can do, but we can learn from you. And I always am paying attention to the creative folks on the smaller front that are not these massive media companies, but regional or local papers and places that are doing things that are out of the box. And I kind of got that way when social media came on board back in the day, because I realized it was kind of an end run for me to be able to actually directly connect with my viewers than to have to wait to be promoted through the station or whatever. That basically we are having this opportunity to connect and build relationship with our audience. And in turn, in my opinion, the more you can interact and see someone in a sort of fuller, broader context, the more you feel like you understand or know where they're coming from, or potentially can trust them. So to me, from the very beginning of social media and why I embraced it so heavily, it was an opportunity to finally build a trusted relationship with folks at home. And it really has helped me along the way, because I don't get a lot of people jumping on my feed screaming, fake media and all this other stuff that you hear the national media getting. And I do feel even that is really unfair, because I've worked in our newsroom now for 3 decades, as we mentioned, the older part of the conversation. And I'm telling you, we have always had a very balanced newsroom. I mean, no one runs around going, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but you can sense sometimes people's, feelings or vibe of where they're at. And I've always sensed a very broad brush of people from different perspectives. Our newsroom is more diverse than it has ever been, which, I personally think is very important, not just having people on air who are diverse, but having people behind the scenes, putting these newscasts together. I'm popping peas here. What's happening? And so we've really made an effort, in my opinion, over these last several years to really, I don't know, just reflect the community better and care more about hitting all the viewpoints, all the perspectives. In terms of AI, it's kind of the way I look back at the beginning of social media, for example, which it sounds like that was like 100 years ago, but it was like what, 15-ish years ago. A lot of traditional journalists were very standoffish about it, very like, oh, that is not anything we should be messing with. So I got a lot of guff for embracing that technology and doing that at the beginning. And over time, I think it has proven to be a good tool for us as journalists. I'm not saying that it's doing the best things in terms of siloing people into their algorithm and only seeing, what they agree with. That is unfortunate, because it's like, you liked it? Okay, we're going to show you more of that. And people are only seeing this narrow version of the world. But in terms of a journalist as a tool using it, it has been and proven to be helpful and useful. Same with AI, I believe, that over time we're going to see there's terror, like, oh my gosh, we're suddenly going to have AI writing all the articles and all the web team is going to be fired. And, there's a lot of naysayers out there predicting all this stuff. And I've read a lot of articles that say AI may replace some of those positions over time, but the people who will do well are the people who learn how to use AI to power their productivity. In other words, you still need the brain, the editor, the senior person to, make the good call, understand the information, recognize untruths and things like that. But you can suddenly do that tenfold versus getting one thing done. So I think AI has a good possibility for a role in journalism with supervision, with controls. So I personally, at this point, would say I continue to embrace social media as a tool, as a journalist. I'm wary of it from a user perspective in terms of siloing your information sources. And AI, I am embracing for the time being. As I kind of look and play with things, there are tools right now I'm using, for example, one that will take a news article, I plug into it from WSPA, and it will populate the article sentences. And then I can go in and edit and tweak and put in images and basically turn that article into a visual media presentation for social media. And to give people sort of the highlights and then link them to the full story. And that's been helpful to me because I'm not a great editor, and it just saves me a lot of time. But generally speaking, I haven't used a lot of AI in the obvious sense of like, I'm using this tool. I obviously am assisted, like we all are, with getting somewhere on the road and doing all those things. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of where I'm at with these particular topics we've addressed. 9/11, of course, thinking back to your story, that was an absolutely powerful way to think of this day. Our station back then, I was on the anchor desk that day, and I was filling in on the morning show for somebody who was out on a leave, and the tower hit happened. My family was still in New York at the time. I'm from New York. And I just remember all of us just being stunned. And like you, we were kind of like, how do we do our job right now? Because the networks took over. And we, fortunately, at Channel 7 at the time had, I don't think it was called the CW then, it was like WASV, whatever. We had a second channel. And we were able to go on it and do local stuff. And we basically brought in panels of like therapists and counselors and ministers and stuff like that, just to help calm people down. So, and we had a phone line open. And we also had resources, because then people were starting to freak out, if you'll remember, just like survive, almost like instant survival. Do we need to go into survival mode? And I mean, it was just bizarre. But we had people in to answer questions and help people. So that was a sort of innovative way to respond to the strange situation. And we went wall to wall with local concerns and questions and things like that for a couple of days. But it was a very perplexing time. And I do remember that feeling that we had after, on the positive side of the sort of unity piece. It's missed, because the world, like you say, is so divided, and social media is definitely adding to the problem. News media that is very opinionated in terms of their, you got your MSNBC and your CNN and your this and your that, and people going into, again, those silos and only watching whatever channel it is they love and not consuming media from different sources. Because I personally have always loved being a journalist because I like to be in the middle. I like to understand all the perspectives. I like to listen to different sources and see like, oh, that's interesting how MSNBC is covering that, and look over here at Fox News covering it. And it actually is kind of fascinating sometimes to really look at the two things and go like, wow. I mean, that was totally too, it is eye-opening. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't doing that. And I do think ultimately truth and knowledge come down to individual responsibility. If I were to take a stand on anything, I would say we need to be educating our kids, like you say, to be critical thinkers. Because first of all, you need that in life. But second of all, as consumers of information and participants in society, I think we have to have good critical thinking skills in the job and everywhere else. Thank you, guys. Sorry I didn't prepare.
You can sit or stand. You have one to share. I'm going to wander around with this one so that you can hear the questions. And I'm just going to kick it off with one. So I completely agree with what you said, Andy. We should not be living in a post-truth society. Journalists are all about truth, if nothing else, about truth. But we also have a lot of young journalists who are coming to journalism not necessarily with a journalism degree, sometimes with a PR degree or a marketing degree or something a little less truth focused. And I think the same thing you probably find on the TV end of things. And I just wonder, how hard is it to, when you send a reporter out to do a story, how do they have the skills, or do you have to train them in the skills to be able to separate truth from non-truth?
Okay, so one of the big challenges in journalism right now, and it's being written about in the trades, we're talking about it in our newsrooms, is the who's coming behind us. Some of the schools we're hearing are having to, move their programs out of the buildings they're in because they're not quote unquote successful programs anymore, because the salaries are not projected to attract young people who are paying those big college bills to get the degree. So there's some issue with who is going to come behind us. Are they going to have the motivations that we talked about that are so important to us in terms of being in the business for the right reasons, not wanting to be an Instagram star, but wanting to be a journalist? So we are finding working with the colleges as they attract people, trying to get into the high schools to remind kids that this is a worthy profession, and the kind of the roots of why you want to do it. I think having that passion or the connection to the why you want to be a journalist is the key. And I think the younger we can expose kids to that, the better. But we're finding challenges with young people that aren't fully prepared like they used to be. So this market, for example, in television, I can't speak to print, but we used to have people that would come here from 2 or 3 jobs experience before they got here. And now we're hiring producers and reporters directly out of college with no experience. So we, the elders of the newsroom, are trying to, help. We obviously are editing stuff. We're always worried about accuracy. And obviously, I mean, even the most esteemed and excellent journalists make mistakes, right? I mean, no one's perfect, but the experience you have helps you avoid a lot of the mistakes along the way.
So Ed Bell and I bought the newspaper 4 years ago in Charleston. I'm paying a starting reporter $10,000 more a year today than I did 4 years ago because I can't find a damn reporter.
Yeah.
And so, a starting reporter now will make $45,000 with very little experience, and I'm paying better than TV.
I was about to say.
And
he's
that's
paying better than we are.
because, you know, they want to be on TV.
Yeah.
You know, but I kind of come at, I generally am disappointed at what's coming out of the journalism schools. When I went to graduate school, and y'all got to understand, I went to graduate school at North Carolina, but I also went to Duke, so you cannot trust me at all. Okay? But when I went to graduate school in North Carolina, of the 15 people that were in my grad class, I'm the only person making a living in journalism.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. And I didn't do this for a while. I was in PR for a while myself. So anyway, it's really kind of amazing. But, you know, I look at 3 different members of my staff. One resigned Friday. Okay. And so I got an opening for a music reporter. One of them left a year ago, and then the charter school, the charter school, got dechartered. So he was looking for a job, and now he's back with me, and making more money. And then the third person, who's the rock star, is the managing editor. And she was a web editor about 3 years ago, and she's really stepped up. What I think that you're having to do, like we're having to do, is to provide more opportunities, more money, and more training. Like I sent the managing editor on an editing seminar with the Poynter Institute, which is the best place in the country. And it's just, we're having to do things like that. But, you know, journalism is not a sexy profession that you're going to make a lot of money in. But I do think that there are experienced people in the business who can help the next breed. I also think that if you compare the demographic of 40-year-olds to 20-year-olds, the people, my daughter turns 20 tomorrow. Okay. That demographic is pissed off, and they're going to make changes, and they're going to become the next reporters and the next TV anchors. And I think that's healthy for us all, and it's healthy for truth.
Questions? Getting any closer? Or was that?
So my question is, you talk a lot about, you know, the inexperience and how hard it is to get journalists and whatever. And I have a son who graduated with a broadcasting degree, and he worked for a while as a producer of a conservative radio station. And he will tell you flat out, their job was not to put out the news, it was entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you're talking a lot about the inexperience, but what about the news that really isn't news, that people are thinking is news?
Well, but the key you said is a conservative, what did you say, a conservative what show?
It was conservative radio.
Okay, so already you're dealing, if you go into the partisan media, I would say that that's probably true across the board, because they're trying to create drama. I mean, there are fights and viewpoints and arguments. I mean, and Roxanne used to be in radio back in the day, and she knows. So yeah, I mean, especially radio, because I mean, how are you going to get people to listen to radio these days other than to create a lot of drama? I mean, you almost need to make the news level drama. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's different though than a newsroom, a newspaper, a traditional television station where we're trying to cover the news, so to speak. I mean, we're not taken aside. Like, we're part of Nexstar, which is owned by Newsnation, or Nexstar owns NewsNation, and their national show is trying to go down the center. Again, I'm going to say, you know, that's their goal. I don't know if they achieve it every day, but I don't get to watch them. They're not on my system. But yeah, so we are from the top down, as far as I understand, in our organization, we're trying to be truth tellers, represent all sides, you know, tell what's going on in the community, etc. So yeah, that's the effort every day.
I think that it's great that your child has started in radio, or any media. The fact that it's conservative or not doesn't matter. I think use it as you do at that age as a stepping stone. My guess is, what's happening now is that somebody starts and stays a year, and then they go to a whole nother side of the profession. I'd say use it as a stepping stone inside, because there's papers like mine. Now, if is it a boy or girl? All right, if he were to come, I don't use days, sorry. If he were to come to me and say, I want a job, I'm going to say, what have you done? Show me some clips. And then I'm going to address the elephant. I'm going to say, why were you at this place? Because I am not a conservative newspaper. I am more of a progressive editorial objective on news. And we do food, we do art, and we do music, which is all entertainment. 86% of our readers like the food coverage the best. So, guess what we're going to be doing? But it's also what people in Charleston want. But I mean, use it as a stepping stone. But that's what we're seeing is that too many people start out at the $30,000 a year in TV. Is that about right now? 30, 35?
I actually don't know, but
But-
I'm guessing you're right.
But say $35,000 in TV, which you can't live on in Charleston.
Or
Or Greenville now.
Yeah.
And then they're leaving after a year to a 50,000, 55,000 PR job. That's the problem. We need to provide those opportunities in the stations.
Questions?
Also, if he wants to get into news, call us. We'll be happy to hear from him. If we can help in any way. No, seriously, I am on LinkedIn. If he wants to reach out to me, please encourage him. Yeah.
What a great mom.
I have 2 jobs open.
I'll try to get him to raise the money.
Hi, Andy, you used the term curate or curation
Right.
in your comments. That's a favorite word of mine. Do you see, particularly as an educator, do you see the need for there to be the notion of curation or curating information, and specifically curating news, to be taught as a regular topic in our education systems today?
There's a law now that requires the state to teach financial literacy to high school students. I think that there ought to be something. You're going to probably give me a column here. But there ought to be some sort of law to teach people how to understand what's going on in the world. I think, and I use the word curate for a lot because I have a side business that's a clipping service, and every day we provide 80 to 100 clips of what's going on in South Carolina. And the people who clip are told, give me different versions of the same story. I want to know what WSPA says about Nikki Haley on the same day that what Charleston says and what the city paper says. I want to know to see if they're covering, like the Lindsey Graham story, right? Hold your nose, people. But the Lindsey Graham, that's the opinion haver coming out in me. But did you ever see the Monty Python skit called Nudge, Nudge, Wink, Wink, Say No More? Yeah, come on, really. He was in there trying to get that dude to find $11,000. We all know it. He'll never say it because it's a slippery little eel. But anyway. That would say something. But anyway, I don't even remember my point now.
I'm just laughing. Where are we at? I do also concur on kind of the idea of encouraging or requiring or having some class or month or I don't know, something where critical thinking in terms of information and the consumption of it is taught in the schools in some way. And I do think there are some programs in schools that are doing that kind of thing, but I think it needs to be everywhere.
Well, I just like to take this opportunity. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yep.
I hope
Just let it die. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both of you for your intentionality toward driving the news toward truth. Driving the news toward more than library books and gender. Because it has bothered me over the past decade to see much of what I consider to be the truth ignored. And I'll give you an example of Greenville, not Charleston, but I'll give you an example of Greenville. For the past decade, we've seen every single one of the neighborhoods serving African-American families displaced and replaced with the beautiful condominiums and townhomes that we all love. I love how Greenville looks, but it bothers me how Greenville has systematically displaced a whole contingency of families, and nothing has been said about it, short of, for the most part, the Post and Courier. I'll give the Post and Courier a little credit for that. So I thank you for your intentionality toward driving toward the truth. And as for these new reporters, I think that there's a lot that leadership in newspapers can do to drive these new upcoming reporters toward those burning issues that affect all of us. So I just want to, let's give them a big round of applause.
So who has a question? That was really great. And also, I think I saw, was it the Post and Courier or Greenville News? Somebody did a beautiful pictorial, it was Greenville News. They did a really beautiful series on the situation and then, yeah, gentrification. Yeah, it was great. And Furman's done some conversations and they were part of it. Oh, okay. Furman was part of that. That's great. Questions? Come over here.
I have a question for the editor. You said that there's a generation that's pissed off. And the reason I'm asking this question is, even as I look around this room, I'm probably as older than most of them. That would be surprising. But the thing is, I'm trying to motivate younger generations about getting interested in what's going on in this world and doing something about it. Like after the last election, major election, I was kind of perturbed by what happened when they elected a certain conservative president. And I happen to go to Publix a lot because that's where my wife sends me for groceries. And I noticed what I like about it is they have a lot of young people. They have a lot of young college and high school kids working there doing various functions. And that's the target I'm asking questions to. And one young lady, I said, "Did you vote?" She's cashier. I said, "Can I ask you how old are you?" She was 23. I said, "Did you vote?" She says, "No." I said, "Why not?" She said, "I didn't know what the issues were." And I look around and I'm always asking these kids questions and suggesting maybe they read something or find out how you're going to college or greater in them asking questions about high school and so forth. I'm just trying to find out how you can get anybody pissed off about what's going on in this world. So I'd like to know who that generation is, because I feel terrible seeing what I think is the future of our country going down the drain if we don't get younger groups. We're attending presently a Furman University series of talks.
Right.
It's going on. The last one's going to be tomorrow night.
Right.
And I look around that they fill all 800 seats. And I look around and all I see is white hair like myself. And I'm saying, what's happening to the other generation? But I'd really like to know a little about that generation. It sounded positive to me. Thank you.
All right. You might not like the answer, but they have to buy a house first. They need to get invested in the community, and then they'll start caring. Right now, what I think is that they're bubbling up with anger, and it's an anger that is going to stay with them for a while, and they're not going to give the more conservative leaders a pass when it comes their time to take leadership and to get more invested in the community. There was a book written by a guy named Rui Teixeira back 30 years ago, and he basically wrote that the South, in particular, what he was talking about, the South and a lot of places that are red will turn purple or blue as the brown and black populations become the majority. And that's happening slowly but surely. And so you'll see in the larger communities that have a larger African American and a Hispanic population, they're turning more blue. And that's going to drive some of the change, I think. I think also that first of all, the Furman students aren't going to that thing because, they only have to go to one a semester, I think. So they're not going to go to all of them. But I think that it's healthy to have those discussions and that they are paying attention to a lot of those things. If you look at the demographics in voting, the people that are 18 to 25 are the lowest registered to vote anywhere. And that's been even when you were a 18 to 25-year-old. I mean, people just do not register to vote at an early age. The generation that votes the most are 65 plus. And it's just the demographics of it all. But if you look at if you parse apart the number of younger Americans voting now compared to how they did 20 years ago, there's a slight upturn of that. And I think those people are going to be the ones that start making more of a difference. Also, in South Carolina, we have like 5 million people, 3.6 million of them are eligible to vote. Only a little over half of them are actually registered to vote. And only half of those go to vote. So in essence, you're having about 25% of the population making a decision in our society. We need to get the people who are registered to vote. I saw something a couple of days ago, and it's on the internet, so it could be fake. But it said if the turnout in the national election is 50% in 2024, Republicans win. If it's 55%, Democrats win. If it's 60%, Democrats win in a landslide. And I think that's right. I think the Democrats have to turn voters out and make them care. And they'll learn the issues if they on Instagram, Facebook, our news sites, and other things. So, I mean, I think that if they want to learn the issues, they'll learn the issues.
Is the magic sauce, right? Turning people out.
Yeah.
So I have 5 minutes of announcements to make. So I just want to ask a question. If any of our folks here have a question that's going unanswered, if I shoot you guys an email, can you provide a response, and I'll put it in that post-event thing
I
that I
sent you the pictures.
send out. Send me the pictures. Oh, great. Thank you so much for. Okay, so actually, this is a great place to jump back in. Please, if you guys, hello? Nothing? Okay, sorry. Hello?
Yeah.
Here we go. This is actually a good place to jump in on the subject of getting out the vote. So I just have a few announcements to go through. We are less than 2 months away from Election Day. I know, and I know that everyone in this room wants to see all three of our Democratic candidates, including Michelle and Dorothy, who are with us today, win their elections. And we can do that. We actually have the numbers to do that. Democrats have won in the city of Greenville when they turn out. Data shows, and I got this from the county chair, so I'm presuming it to be correct. It didn't come from the internet. When they turn out, data shows 47% of voters in the city lean Democratic compared to 44 leaning Republican. In Dorothy's 2019 race, she earned 56% of the vote. Russell Stahl in 2021, that was in 2019, did I say that? In 2021, Russell Stahl won 59% of the vote. In 2020, Joe Biden won Greenville with 54% of the vote. And I expect it's going to be bigger this year, or 24. And Jamie Harrison got 56%. Gubernatorial candidates James Smith won the city by 57.5%, and Joe Cunningham by 53%. So we have the numbers and we have the candidates. While I am very grateful to the 35 Democratic women who have consistently turned out to help so far, I know that they also need help. There's a lot to do in the next 2 months, and we need more people to do it. So I want you to look on your tables. You're going to see these little half sheet things, quarter sheet things, right? Just put your name, your phone number, your email address, and what kind of activity you'd like to be involved in. Leave them on the table. We will pick them up, and somebody on our team will call you and sign you up. It can't make it any easier than that. If I have to come to your homes, that's going to be a real problem, and you don't want that. So in addition to those, you have those table cards on your tables where you can sign yourself up, and you can also donate to either campaign. So I hope that you will take a second and do that. I also wanted to point out, among the many things on your tables, you also have these little information cards, right? Take these. They're not for you. They're for you to carry around with you. Take a bunch. I have hundreds more. They're for you to carry around with you in your pocket, in your purse, in your wallet, so that when you meet people who you think might be interested in Democratic women, you have something to give them. On the back, it's got QR codes to social media, to our website, things like that. So please take them. I got a lot more. I don't want to have to eat these. And hand them out. I know you meet people who could benefit from having the information. There are 2 weeks left in the application period for county boards and commissions. September 30th is the last day applications will be accepted. If you need help finding information, check the post-event email that I'm going to send out, and I will make sure the link is in there. I also wanted to point out that our membership numbers keep growing. I can just have everybody. Thank you. We gained 8 new members since the last meeting. We're up to 242 members now, which is really exciting. Thank you. And I'd just like to take a moment to welcome any new members who are here today for the first time since they've been a member, and ask you if you would stand up. Thank you. We've also got a lot of new faces. A lot of new people are coming. Not all of them become members right away, but they're still part of our community. So if you are new to a meeting, sounds a little bit like AA. If you are new to a meeting, would you mind standing up and letting us see you? If this is the first meeting you've been to. So it's great to have all of you. Thank you so much. Okay, last month I mentioned we would be doing a community project this fall to support the Period Project. We've now got those details nailed down. We will be collecting feminine hygiene products through October 6th. You can drop them off at the GCDP headquarters. There is a sign-up link that you'll get in the email that I follow up the meeting with, where you can purchase specific items. Tell us what you're going to purchase for this project, or donate to us so that we can purchase. On October 7th, we're gonna have a packing party. So we need about 20 people, to come together, to assemble all of this product. Are you leaving? Thank you, Amy. To assemble all this product into individual packs that will be given out to students in schools and women in need of assistance. That's going to be 10 a.m. on the 7th. That's a Saturday. We'll have coffee and pastries to keep you going. All the links will be in the post-event email, so please look for them. And we've got a really cool event planned for Sunday, November 12th. Anybody here shop for Christmas? Couple of you? Okay. So it's a pre-Christmas shopping spree fundraiser. It's going to be held at the West Side Market. Thanks to Linda Director getting it together. We will have this place totally to ourselves. It's all private. That will be great. There'll be wine and snacks, and it looks like there are a lot of cool stores. So 10% of the purchases will go to benefit them women. So that's going to be a lot of fun and also help you get a jump on holiday shopping. And two very last things. I wanted to congratulate Laura Lowry, who I promised I would embarrass publicly in some way for being this month's GOTV Democrat of the Month for the party. When you guys all sign up for these phone banks and canvassing, you too can be in the running for this month.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope to see you next month when our speakers will be Michelle Shane and Dorothy Dow, and they will get us fired up to get out the vote and win this election.